Hello everyone and welcome back to our Christmas episode of Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Obviously there's some tremendous racing to look forward to and that's the key point of this show, but a lot to look back on as well. Steve Ryder in his usual position to my left, and we welcome some glamour to the show. Welcome to Ella McNeill, who we see more and more on the racecourse now, not only in your role as racing manager for Chelsea Thoroughbreds, but also a burgeoning broadcaster working for Race Day TV. How are things going in that respect?
Yeah, good. Absolutely loving it. I kind of made the move to working in racing kind of this time last year, so I'm still quite fresh into everything, but Chelsea role's going really well. I had my first kind of proper winner on Saturday at Doncaster with a lovely juvenile, so that was very nice, and yeah, things are going really well. As you said, really exciting period coming up.
Yeah, Whispering Royal, very
That's
impressive
right.
at Doncaster. Yeah, we'll come back to you in just a moment. A brief recap, Steve, from you about what we saw last weekend, and was there anything really outstanding that you're going to look forward to chatting about?
Yeah, I was blown away by a few performances. We'll get on to Dysart Enos. Our kind of podcast horse, I suppose, Broadway Boy, did it for Dan and I from last week. Really good action and looking ahead to the Christmas period.
And can you tease what you're looking ahead to the Christmas period? Is there something that you've got in mind that we should be paying attention to the very end of the show for?
Yeah,
or people just going to scroll through and get to the end?
My best bet is going to be 33 to 1 shot, and I also fancy another horse at 66 to 1. So yes.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, as tradition demands on our show, every guest who comes on has to give us a horse that has impressed them so far, want to follow for the remainder of the season, not from the last week or so, just an overall view. So what have you got for us, Ella?
Yeah, well, I have a real soft spot for juvenile hurdlers. My family have been trying to win the Triumph Hurdle for about 20 years. We've come second, third, fourth, last. So we've had it all, but we've never had a winner at Cheltenham Festival, and the Triumph would be the one we'd love to win. We love bringing these young horses through. And Burdett Road, the time that he won at Huntingdon just took my breath away. And the fact that we've seen him win at Royal Ascot and now he's coming over hurdles, we don't see that very often anymore. You know, a winner at Royal Ascot now going juvenile hurdling, I think is pretty cool. And obviously won really nicely at Cheltenham, and his form was franked again this weekend with the nice horse winning the juvenile there on Saturday. Yeah. So I think he's a real player for the Triumph and one I will be watching carefully this season. Yeah,
interesting you mentioned Burdett Road, because there are one or two people on this panel, one person on this panel, who, although there was some positivity about Burdett Road early in the show, early in the series, it wasn't, not that you were negative,
no,
but you felt that there would be some other contenders coming forth. And just as Burdett Road has had a boost during the week, one or two others in Ireland, Mighty Bandit might have had
old Mighty Bandit.
Yeah,
this is going to be Johnny versus myself for the whole season, Burdett Road against Mighty Bandit. But form boost left, right and centre for both. So all my point was that the price at the time was 7 to 1. I thought was a bit short with what's going to come out from Ireland.
Well, I like the fact that you point out Burdett Road, because I do like the idea of horses that are very good on the flat going over hurdles, irrespective of what stage they are in their career. But it's nice to see it. We don't see it as much anymore. Okay, that's a little teaser of what's to come in this week's Racing Recap. And we start at Cheltenham, and arguably one of the most exciting horses of the season so far. And I'll start with you, Dysart Enos. She's lived up to everything that everyone believes she is, particularly her trainer, Fergal O'Brien, when she won at Cheltenham on the weekend.
Yeah, and Fergal has such a popular following, doesn't he? He's fantastic on social media, and I think, as you said, Dysart Enos, I think, could be the one for them. Not had a winner at the Cheltenham Festival, the Fergal team, and I think this could be the one. The way she travelled through her race, Paddy didn't even have to touch her. And, it wasn't, the pretty competitive race there with Beat the Bat, whose form has been franked time and time again. Very smart horse for Harry Fry, and Fergal was waxing lyrical about her, and I think he's right to.
I like the point that Ella refers to. Beat the Bat and her have pulled a long, long way clear of everything else, and she was always travelling over Beat the Bat. I think she's out of the top draw.
I mean, this was a graded novice hurdle in all bar name, really, wasn't it? And you had the right horses involved at every point. Meatloaf, I suppose, was the exception. He jumped poorly throughout, so I just put a line through that run. But even Spirits Bay kind of made it a good test and was still in contention, falling at the last when headed. But Dysart Enos was a bit keen in the early stages. Paddy got a settle, but really taught her throughout the race, kind of came between horses, and there was only going to be one winner up the straight. I mean, beat the bat, like Ella said, had good form beating Welcome to Catria at Ascot last time.
Yeah.
Like, it's proper form going forward. She relished the course and distance. Obviously, this was over the 2 mile one at the Mares Novice Hurdle. Will be now 9-2 at Bet365 for that race. And yeah, she's definitely worthy being that price.
Yeah, and Ella, I'm sorry to mention this so quickly in the show, but Steve was used to the fact that I like to mention race IQ at almost every opportunity that I get. It is fascinating to find out some of the information. And the race IQ info about Dysart Enos that was particularly interesting was that the speed at which she went down to the final flight of hurdles was the quickest, I think, of the meeting over hurdles. And they talk about the envelope coming in and out, and her speed then to be able to produce that there and then go away from beat the bat, whether that's a maintenance of that. It suggests that her innate ability is as good as there is.
That could be a really tricky final hurdle as well. You've seen in the past, Goshen obviously in the Triumph. You've seen, I remember brewing up a storm one day, obviously at the last. We saw Kurosh as well. Like, it is a tricky hurdle, especially for going that pace, approaching the last in contention with another horse.
She is, I think she's now 4-1 joint favourite with brighter days ahead for the Mares Novices Hurdle. Is she the likeliest winner at this stage, or are you with the Irish challenger?
I'm going to stick with the British. I think we've obviously dominated last year with Love Envoy and You Wear It Well. So I think it's one of the races I think we've not got in the bag, but obviously brighter days ahead for Gordon and Gigginstown, unbeaten, very smart. But I just love the way she's got obviously Cheltenham form now, and I think I really fancy her for that race.
Yeah, I'm all out. I think 4-1's still all right.
Yeah.
What do you think?
There's a couple I'm interested in. I like Fun for the race. Obviously, she made a bad mistake at the last. We'll touch on later on. I'd like to see how she comes out of the race, because obviously that was a nasty mistake at the final hurdle. The one that could be a kind of lurker in here is Tiger Bay Queen.
Yep.
She's a really smart bumper horse, and she's been purchased by JP. She hasn't made her hurdling debut yet, but I think she's got a few entries over Christmas, and she's kind of the joker in the pack. She's around sort of 16-1 for the race, and she could play the field apart.
You know, obviously I've abandoned my love of Queen's Gamble because I just think Dysart Enos is so good, I have to. Let's talk about the 2.5 mile Novices Chase, which is won by Ginny's Destiny. Grey Dawning, a lot of people look back at the mistake that Grey Dawning made and say that was the difference between victory and defeat. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and it wasn't just the mistake at the second last as well. He just didn't jump with the same fluences as he did in that graduation chase. Harry Skelton obviously got a few pelters on Twitter around it, but it wasn't disagreements with the horse. The horse was just a bit careful at a few and then kind of let fly at a few. Ginny's Destiny, on the other hand, jumped really well. Harry Cobden oozed confidence throughout the race, and he's just a brilliant jockey round Cheltenham on front runners, isn't he? He just times it to perfection. He's definitely going to get 3 miles in time. Apparently the Scilly Isles in February could be a logical next step for him. He's now eligible for handicaps though. I checked this morning, he's up £5 to a mark of 146.
Right.
So whether they go the handicap route instead, he looks to have a bit of scope off that marker. Now eligible, obviously, following those 3 runs over fences.
Yeah, he's 2 from 3 for Paul Nicholls in those 3 runs. I mean, what sort of impression has Ginny's Destiny given you, Ella?
Yeah, he was eye-catching. I want to call her a she, Ginny. But I must remember he's a he. Yeah, he was eye-catching, wasn't he? I think, as you said, jump foot perfectly. Harry just got such a tune out of him and really impressed. And I think he was quickening. I know obviously Grey Dawning lost a lot of ground with his jumping, and I don't think he would have quite got there. I like the way that he powered up the hill, and he's definitely an exciting one for this season.
Yeah, I love his attitude, and it seems to me that there is scope for stepping up in distance to be as good, if not better. So exciting times for Ginny's Destiny. The cross country, Ella, once again, Latenightpass ran a super race, obviously beaten second, very good run in the cross country in November. Got his moment on this occasion. By the way, our deepest commiserations and condolences to connections of Geskill, who sadly passed away in that race. Latenightpass, though, I think Connections has spoken about the Grand National, but now this sort of performance, you're thinking, even though the conditions of the race are different at the festival, a big player in the cross country at the festival. Yeah,
definitely. I think that would be the next stepping stone, wouldn't it? And I think this horse could be a real contender for the National. I think I had a look back, and it's quite an old-fashioned path, isn't it, going from cross-country through to the National? But I saw Silver Birch did it. He won that race and then went on to win a National. So it's not a traditional route to tread, but I think he's got to be a good player. I was really impressed with the way he quickened over the fences there. I think also great to see Manello Indo run so well in that race, giving Latenightpass a stone and £6. So I think it's a nice way, isn't it? These older horses that, you know, are full of class and have such great form, and obviously winning a Gold Cup, and now he's going over this discipline. I think it gives him a new kind of zest for life, doesn't it? So a brilliant race all in all, but yeah, obviously very sad for Oliver and Josh to lose Gaskill.
Indeed, that was the one hugely disappointing element of the whole meeting, and it meant that emotions were all over the place over the couple of days of the December meeting at Cheltenham. But Latenightpass, just dealing with this horse in isolation, I think probably we don't know just how quite good this horse is. The style of racing, Steve, suggests to me that even though conditions will be different, weights and measures suggest it will be harder at the festival. It's still more of a possibility than not with this horse.
Yeah, I'd prefer to back him for the Grand National than I would the cross country, to be honest. Like Ella said, bear in mind he carried 10 stone 8 and Manello Indo is carrying 12 stone here. I was hoping that the bookmakers would kind of miss Manello Indo, but yeah, now 5-1 for the race. And I thought he had a brilliant trial for it. Took really well to it, travelled well, and then just got a bit tired up the hill, which he's perfectly entitled to do, carrying 12 stone on the softer, heavy ground at the time. Galvin will obviously then hope that the ground is better. Come March, he lost a shoe apparently, so that run could probably be upgraded. He was beating nearly 10 lengths at the finish. Latenightpass I just thought was a brilliant story, really. Obviously, Tom Ellis and Gina Andrews do a lot of the work with this horse. Had to transfer to Dan Skelton to actually be eligible to run in the Grand National. I think it was good that Dan actually highlighted and praised Tom Ellis, because really it's just running under his name, and Tom's still doing the work, really. But yeah, it's worth looking back at his form in the Fox Hunters at Aintree. He finished second in 2021, won it in 2022. That's over an inadequate trip of 2 mile 5. The Fox Hunters at Aintree. It's obviously under a shorter distance than what it is at Cheltenham. And yeah, as you can see here, what's this over 3 mile 6, 3 mile 5? The Grand National trip will bring out the best of him. And yeah, 33-1 with Bet365 wouldn't put anyone off.
All right, Gordon Elliott at the moment, seemingly according to the market, holding all the aces for the cross-country chase. Delta Work 3-1, Conflated 7-2, Galvin 5s, Manello Indo 5s, Latenightpass 8s.
You'd have question marks around the Gordon Elliott horses though. Galvin hasn't looked himself.
No, I agree.
I know you have ground as excuses. Delta Work finished lame last time, so he'd have question marks as well, and obviously didn't come to this race. Conflated, obviously they're just going to see how he gets on over in Ireland. He could be the joker in the pack, but I thought Manello Indo was the one to back at the prices.
All right. The big race, obviously, over the weekend was the December Gold Cup. An extraordinary race to watch. Thrilling race for so many different reasons. And Fugitive got up to beat Il Rodotto, 2 horses with a terrific record at Cheltenham in these big handicaps. What was your reading of it, Steve?
Yeah, you just need to back Cheltenham form when you get to these big handicaps. I pointed to Fugitive on the show last week that I was actually hoping that they'd drop him in trip. I was slightly concerned, and the way that he stayed on, I couldn't be more wrong, could I? It looks brilliant when it works, but I thought Gavin Sheehan's
That's how they should have always been riding him, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm sure Gavin Sheehan probably thought he was too far back. I mean, Il Rodotto really was putting it on coming down the hill. They got racing a long way out, and that probably put pay to Monmoral's chances. He just looked flat out for the whole trip. He's definitely going to step up to 3 miles. I wouldn't give up on him, though, because remember, he's still a novice. So he'll now be eligible for novice handicap chases, novice chases going forward. So imagine a drop in class for Monmoral, and see if he can get his career back on track over 3 miles. But yeah, Fugitive is definitely going to have to go integrated company again here. The handicappers put him up £6 to 157. So days and handicaps are gone, but he's a lovely horse. He
is a lovely horse. How did you read the race, Ella? What did you make of how it all unfolded?
Yeah, well, mixed emotions, because we had Thunder Rock in the race. So when you go off 7-2 favourite, and well, I had read that there's only one favourite in this century that won the race. So and obviously, as you say, Steve, Cheltenham form is vital in that race. And so we were initially very disappointed, but going away from my McNeill family head, I
was going to actually bring that up at the end, but it's fine.
No, I looked at it with a fresh eyes the next day when I got over the disappointment, and what a fantastic renewal that was. I mean, obviously we talk about Harry Cobden and Sean Bowen being these, obviously top jockeys, but Gavin, I mean, what a tune he got out of Fugitive, and they gave him the coolest of rides turning down the hill. He wasn't even in the TV screen. He was so far back, and to see him run on like he did down that hill and up to the finish was just, amazing. And Bryony again, front running with Eruditor. I think that's the way to ride that horse going forward, and two very exciting horses for the future.
Yeah, it was, and it was an exciting finish. There were a couple of differing emotions about the Bryony Frost ride. Some people said terrific ride because she's got into a lovely rhythm, but then one or two people I saw on social media were suggesting that she shouldn't have gotten locked up with that battle with Frero Bamboo for the lead, and that's cost Il Ridotto.
I thought it was a brilliant losing ride. Yeah,
agreed. And Sean came off Thunder and said, "Gosh, they went some gallop there. Like they went quick." And I think she took her time and she went for it when she did. And I think she jumped to jump beautifully and got, as I said, a real tune out of him. And I think maybe you can analyse it whatever way you want, but I think she gave him a brilliant ride. Yeah,
it was a terrific race, and I think. As Steve said, Fugitive now out of handicap company, given where he is in the ratings. Be interesting to see what connections do. Obviously, the Ryanair would be the ultimate option, were he proving up to that standard. They did mention the Fleur de Lis Chase at Lingfield. That could actually turn out to be a good race, because obviously Protectorat, your fella, which we come to in a moment, or Broadway Boy, all lining up for that. So who knows? And let's talk about Broadway Boy. I'll let Steve go on this, because this is really kind of his horse. It races in someone else's name, but he wears the colours of Broadway Boy. You should see him dressed in his little outfit, Broadway Boy
beige outfit.
Yeah, he's got his little stick and everything. It's very sweet. But a few moments of concern on Broadway Boy.
He made a couple of mistakes at crucial times. We touched on race IQ earlier. It's fascinating in this, because everyone said, he didn't jump as well as he did last time. But actually, the time that it took him to go away from his fences and cost, he was actually jumped better on the figures in this race than what he did in his Novice Chase, which I was pretty amazed at. Obviously, in that Novice Chase, it looked like he jumped perfectly, other than that one fence at the top of the hill. But yeah, I thought it was some performance. I just love this horse. Viewers will think Queen's Gamble with you when you think of a horse. I mean, Broadway Boy is going to reach those heights for me. I know this was only off a mark of 146, but it was a proper performance. The handicappers rated him £4 to 150, which I actually think is a bit lenient, up to 150 after that. He now heads to the Brown Advisory, I think, 14 to 1 with Bet365. Yeah. I know you want him to go to the National Hunt Chase, and I do think he'll relish that, but I think Nige is pretty set in his ways that he wants to go the Brown Advisory route. That could be one of the races of the week. If you look who's in it, Stay Away Faye, Corbett's Cross, Classical Dream, Flooring Porter, maybe even Gaelic Warrior. Like, I loved Willie Twiston-Davis's comments after the race. He just loves him, nearly as much as I do.
Nearly. But nobody loves him quite as much as Steve. That is a fact.
It will be some sight watching him and Stay Away Faye battle up the hill. They've both got such good attitudes. I'm sure both would prefer it to be on the old course and be more of a stamina test. Obviously, this was 3 mile 2. The Brown Advisory would be over 3 miles. So, they're going to have to get racing from quite far out to bring the emphasis on stamina. But, I just love this horse.
Well, I'm going to ask you about Broadway Boy, Ella. Worth also mentioning that Protectorat ran a terrific race under top weight, obviously giving plenty of weight away to finish back in third. And I think Connections felt, and they walked away from Cheltenham thinking that they've got Protectorat back, and that heading to the Fleur de Lis Chase at Lingfield is going to be quite exciting. I wanted to ask you about Broadway Boy and what you made of the performance. Interestingly, obviously Steve wants him, Connections seem like he might be running in the Brown Advisory, but he's second in the market for the National Hunt Chase. The only horse that's ahead of him in the market for the National Hunt Chase is a horse called 3 Card Brad that races in the McNeill family colours.
Yeah, that's right. There's a few connections here, because obviously 3 Under 3.5 came second in the race to Broadway Boy, giving him £4. And as you say, the handicapper put him up to Broadway Boy to 150. 3 Under went to 152. So I think that was very lenient. I saw it this morning. I thought, oof, that's lucky Broadway Boy. But as you say, he's a novice, and to do that against those seasoned chasers is very impressive. And I think he's one to watch for sure. And you're right, Protectorat ran an absolute stormer, giving all that weight away. And I think Dan would be absolutely delighted with that. You can put a line through his Betfair Chase run, I think, and onwards and upwards for the season. But I thought it was a cracking race, and yeah, 3 under was just denied, but as you say, 3 card Brag in the National Hunt Chase. I think, we're still not completely decided of where we go with him, but I personally think, the longer trip, the 3 mile 5, I think it is, isn't it? 3 mile 4, 3 mile 5, will suit him down to a T, and I think it's pretty open, that race at the moment. The Brown advisory is hot, so yeah, I would favour the National Hunt Chase for 3 card Brag.
I know that. I've been saying to Steve, I like 3 card Brag and respect you, but I do think if Broadway Boy lined up for it, he would probably go off favourite. I think he would be the one that I think he'd win it. And the other thing about him, watching him, he looks to me like he's the old Hennessy, whatever they call it now. I don't know, all the different names, but he looks like he would bolt up in that, even off 150. If he were he to go up a few, I think he'd win that. Yeah. Everything about him suggests that he's going that way, out in front on the pace. He's so admirable, and his jumping will improve, obviously. I think, yeah. Anyway, I've highlighted his campaign through to Christmas. There you go. You're welcome. Willie, Nigel and Sam. I'll answer about the Albert Bartlett trial. Shanna Bob. Nicky Henderson was purring about this horse's performance. On the face of it, it was a good performance. It wasn't in my opinion, out of the top drawer that's making the Irish horses think, right, yeah, the Albert Bartlett's going to stay in the UK. But Nicky Henderson seemingly was over the moon about the way the horse performed, considering his inexperience and the route taken by his rider.
Yeah, £200 purchase. He's a pretty penny for the Donnellys, and yeah, I think it was a step up from his last run at Plumpton where he won impressively. But I think you're right; he's lacks experience and is a bit immature with the way he races. But he's got to line up for the Albert Bartlett. He obviously course and distance form now, and I think he will definitely be there. But these Irish horses that are so well, they're drilled in these races and they're competing against top level horses constantly with more experience than maybe he will go when he lines up in the Albert Bartlett. If he lines up at the Albert Bartlett, a little bit of a question mark for me there. But I thought Destroy the Evidence in second was very good. Yep. I think he's a tough horse. I looked at his form, he goes on all ground, and I think that's what you need for these, I think maybe not the Albert Bartlett for him, but I think he'd win one of these nice handicaps. And Shanna Bob was impressive, but I quite liked Destroy the Evidence in second. Yeah, he's a really honest horse, Destroy the Evidence. Shanna Bob's 16-1 for the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle at the moment. High Class Hero just the favourite at 12s. Firefox, Blizzard of Oz, 14s, 16s. What do you think about the future for Shanna Bob? I think it's going to be, a lovely horse over fences next season. But he, as Ella said, he was just learning on the job. Looked beaten 2 or 3 times in the race and stayed on well at the finish. I was quite disappointed with Destroy the Evidence. I thought he'd win this, use his experience. But he raced awkwardly, didn't really have the pace to go, and then stayed on well at the finish. I think something like that big stayers handicap hurdle at Haydock next season will be ideal for him. It's not form that I'd kind of rate too highly looking forward. It's a difficult market, the Albert Bartlett. I don't normally make my mind up until sort of the week before. Yeah. The Supreme, the Ballymore, a few of the novice chases, you can kind of select horses a long way out. Yes. But the Albert Bartlett, you often get one from left field that just improves run after run after run, which is what I like in these staying times. Okay, so that's a look at the principal races that we saw at Cheltenham over the weekend at the December meeting, but there were lots of other good horses on show over the last week. I'll start with you, Ella. From the list that you've got from the horses that you saw over the last week, any others that stood out significantly for you? Yeah, there was great racing this week, wasn't there? Especially over in Ireland. We had Embassy Gardens win first time over fences. I thought that was very impressive. And I think there's questions last season for his keenness and the way he jumped his hurdles, and it looks like fences just made the man of him a little bit. Elixir, how do you say that? Elixir Dane, I'll go with, yeah. I've got it here, 1,372 days off the track. And what a training performance. It was during the pandemic that he was running, and now he's back. And I think just the key will be to keep this horse sound. And I think I would stick over for hurdles with him and then go chasing. But he's 9 going on 10, so he's not getting any younger, but just a nice story to see him win after that long off the track. We had Quebecois for Nicholls, who, I'm involved with, and he won by 4.5 lengths at Exeter on Wednesday. So that was a nerve-wracking one, to say the least. He was probably our most expensive purchase for our team. And you know, going into a race like that, it's more kind of relief rather than hope and excitement.
Had he shown a lot when he went to Exeter? Did Paul say to you, yeah, expect something decent? I'll be surprised if he gets beat, that sort of chat.
Yeah, well, not the Wednesday, the few days before the Wednesday, he worked with Stay Away Faye, and Nicholls texted us saying, yeah, he's done a lovely piece of work, and just next to Stay Away Faye, actually. So, yeah, we were expecting him to win, and you just wanted him to see him quicken away, and to quicken away in that ground as well,
yeah.
you know, was quite impressive. So we were thrilled with him. We obviously had Apple Away also run at Leicester, which, you know, you can try to draw a line under his not disappointing, but, you know, there's run in the Haydock a few weeks before. You know, Old Gold versus Owners Group in that race with Making Your Mind Up, and I thought, yeah, he was impressive. He was a little bit careful over his fences, I thought, at Haydock, so I watched it back again and jumped really nicely and won by 35 lengths. So that was another nice run, and yeah, lots to discuss about last week for sure.
Yeah, no, Apple Away, she definitely one of the performers of the week. I'm glad that Ella mentioned Quebecois, because I am I saying it right?
Quebecois, yeah.
Quebecois. Oh, Quebecois. Oh, yes, of course. Now I've got it.
Yeah.
I thought that was really impressive. I've said Paul's got some good young horses. Regent Stroll, who obviously got a mention on the show earlier in the year from Paul Ferguson, Quebecois, etc. He's got a good team of bumper horses, and they're something to bear in mind. But those were the two domestically that stood out for me, Quebecois and Apple Away. What about you?
Yeah, there's a few. The other Cheltenham races, Dolly the Great, I thought ran really well to finish second behind Go Dante in that handicap hurdle. They're both nice horses going forward. Le Malmaison extended. Gavin Cromwell's impressive stats at Cheltenham. I highlighted those on the show last week.
Yeah, that was tipped by Dan Overhaul.
No, and don't you dare.
But did both of you tip that?
No.
I've wrote it down. He tipped Lam as one of his. He gave 5.
Fine, okay.
Yeah.
I'll let him off.
You're Broadway boy. Just stick with that for the moment. Jeez.
But yeah, Gavin Cromwell's now had 6 winners, 2 seconds, 2 thirds from 16 runners at Cheltenham this year. That's just ridiculous stats. I thought Lord de Menil was a huge eye catcher in the Veterans Chase. For a horse who relishes 3 mile plus on heavy ground, to do that on 2.5 miles on soft ground, I thought was brilliant. If he stepped back up to 3 miles in one of those Veterans Chases next time, I thought he'd take a world of beating. And more to the point, what was Venetia Williams only doing, putting cheek pieces on Cepage at the age of 11, 31st run under rules? Yeah. I mean, she doesn't know what she's doing, does she?
At last. Finally, Venetia's seen the light with regards to Cepage. And Bradon Fassa was the horse that I think Ella referred to at the start of the show, giving a boost to Burdett Road. Yeah,
Connections aiming at the Boodles. They kind of know that they haven't got the beating of Burdett Road, so interesting to see what mark he gets. Are you wise to that one? The novice handicap chase for John Joe Jr. and Senior. I was quite taken with that performance. The handicappers raised him £5 up to a mark of 130. So I imagine he'll probably need to win again to get into something like the Ultima. That would be the long-term aim for him, I would assume. Nurse Susan gave me bragging rights over Dan.
Yes, yeah, definitely you.
In the mare's handicap hurdle. Bonte obviously was...
Very competitive.
was really unlucky. Like, Bonte looked to the most likely winner, unseating Paddy 2 out. I don't think that's the strongest of form going forward. I'll take that win and run after that. Over in Ireland, I was quite taken with Blood Destiny. He looks a really exciting novice chaser. If you asked me where he'd be starting out, it wouldn't have been 2.5 miles. He was really keen over hurdles, didn't really give them much respect, but he looked a completely different proposition over here. Fences 2.5 miles. I'd be more inclined to take the 14 to 1 for the Arkle than the Turners. I think a drop-in trip, would suit him. Pacini won the 3-year-old maiden hurdle at Fairy House on Saturday by 6.5 lengths. Yeah, that provides another form boost for my Mighty Bandit.
Have you backed Mighty Bandit? Just to reiterate, what price did you back Mighty Bandit?
Yeah, I was only 12s.
Still, what price is Mighty Bandit now? I'm sure you know, don't you?
About 8s, I think.
Oh, here we go. A smug 8s.
but Harsh obviously has boosted that. And the second that day, Lark in the Morning, who was sent off favourite for Joseph, it will be a certainty next time that he runs. Form boost left, right and centre. And then lastly, on Sunday, I'd already touched on it, the result at Thurles will tell you that Birdie or Bust won that listed mare's novice hurdle, but in truth, Fun should have done. Yeah. She actually settled a lot better in this race than what she has done previously. I'd like to hear Mullins come out and say that she's come out of the race okay following that mistake, or at least feature amongst entries at Christmas. Yeah. But she's now 10 to 1 for the mare's novice hurdle, and she's a worthy opponent to Dysart Enos.
Okay, I think that's a pretty good summary of the action that we've seen over the last week, and hopefully in there, 1 or 2 horses to follow for the future. And that has been this week's Racing Recap. Now, before we get into our weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor, Bet365, have an ITV Racing price promise. They'll not be beaten on price on any horse for all UK and Irish races shown live on ITV Racing. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. Now time to have a look ahead to the weekend and indeed the Christmas period. So much good stuff. Let's start with the long walk hurdle, which comes up this Saturday at Ascot. Quite a few old heroes still involved in the race. Ella, there's Champ, there's Dashel Trasher, there's Paisley Park, but there are 1 or 2 new players on the scene, in particular Crambo. How do you see the difference between the generations in this?
Yeah, I see a lot of people on social media saying this. Obviously, it's a tough one because you've got the old seasoned champs, Paisley Park, and people say that the Stayers division is so weak. And yeah, it's probably not the strongest of divisions we've seen, but I think it's great. You know, this is why we all love jump racing. You have Champ, Paisley Park, Dashel Trasher all coming up against each other on Saturday, and I think, you know, people should stop complaining about how terrible this division is and enjoy the racing that we've got on show. But yeah, you're right. Crambo, I think, was unlucky to lose out in that big handicap at Haydock the last day, and Fergal again rates his horse very highly, relatively unexposed, and I think he'll have a really good chance going on Saturday. And obviously West Balboa, who won the Lanzarote hurdle and the Grade 3 entry last season, I think would also, I think she's favourite.
She is 3-1 favourite at the moment. West Balboa, Champ 130, Crambo 7-2. Who's the likeliest winner for you?
I would love to see Dashel Trasher win. I think he's knocked on the door so many times, and obviously won the long distance at Newbury at the beginning of the month, was that last month? And I think he's got the ability. He's a tough old horse, and I think he's got that class that you need to win a race like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Crambo go very close. Well,
obviously Paisley, Champ, Dashel Trasher, they've all met each other on numerous occasions in this race and others. Dashel Trasher just came out ahead of Paisley Park. Emma Lavelle was thrilled with Paisley Park and also tormented at the same time because, of course, he didn't win, but he finished off the race so strongly. I hate to say it, but I'm on the side of the newbies here. I think, personally, I think Crambo is the horse. I know he's got a bit to find at the ratings, but I'm sure he's going to find it.
Yeah, Crambo for me as well. I've got £15 on official figures to find with Dashel Trasher, but he hasn't had the opportunity to reach those figures yet.
Including at this trip.
He's only 6 in comparison. Champ and Paisley Park are 11, Dashel Trasher's 10. Like, Conor Brace obviously got a few pelters for his ride, but the stiff finish at Ascot should really suit him better than what it did at Haydock. I also look back at his record. He's unbeaten in 4 starts going right-handed as well. So the switch back to going right-handed will
And he
suit
won
him.
Ascot.
Yeah, and he won a maiden hurdle at the course as well last year. I think West Balboa is plenty short enough.
So do I.
3-runner race, beat Bruin up a storm. Like, I wouldn't have her favourite here. Crambo, yes, on figures, shouldn't be 7-2, but he has massive potential.
Yeah, I like Crambo. I think Blue King Daru is one just to bear in mind. I went through the pedigree to see whether or not this horse had any pedigree evidence for staying, and I couldn't find a single thing. It's all around 2 miles. Some have stayed on the flat, but it's all around 2 miles, 2.5 miles tops. But his style of racing suggests that he needs further. And Harry Cobden was hard at work when he won last time out, and he just kept rolling and rolling. It seemed the more the race went on, the more he found a bit more. And 16-1, he might be a play each way, but I'm with you. I think Crambo's the horse. I think he's the coming force in the division. If this doesn't happen in the long walk against these oldies, then I think it will be no, I'm joking. It's a great division. Having these old horses is terrific. Okay, so that's a look at the long walk hurdle. The big race over the whole Christmas spell, as we know, is the King George VI Chase. The market for this is now becoming extraordinary because a while back Jerry Colon was favourite. Now he's currently, as we record this programme, 9-2. Behind Allaho, who's 15-8 with Bet365. Braveman's Game, 11-4. Shishkin 7-1, Royal Pagaille 8-1, the Real Wacker 8, Hewick 25-1, and then well, Frodon, a past winner in the race, in there at 66 to 1. I'll start with you here, Steve. How'd you play it? If you were to play it now, given that Jerry Colombo's 92 and Allaho 15 to 8, do you think Jerry Colombo's not coming?
I go through the race and see who's not going to run. So I think we can assume now that Jerry Colombo's not going to turn up for the race. Pic D'Orhy's not going to go, as long as anything doesn't go wrong with Braveman's game. Galopin de Champs isn't coming, Edwardstone isn't going, and I doubt any of the Skelton 4 of My Drogo, Protector Rat, Midnight River or Chambleu are all going to go. So I have this down to a 7-runner race. You've got Allaho, Braveman's Game, Shiskin, Royal Pagaille, the Real Whacker, Hewick and Frodon. Now, the first point is, obviously, Allaho's been all the rage since he's been confirmed for the race. I think it'll be interesting to see if Paul Townend comes over for the ride. He'd have to give up a full book of rides at Leopardstown to come over, including Facile Vega in that Grade 1 Novice Chase, which I don't see happening.
Would you, in Paul Townend's shoes, give up Facile Vega and a full book to come and ride Allaho, the favourite for the King George?
No.
Not that it's a negative. I think Danny Mullins will come over, and I that's not my deciding factor for not liking Allaho. I'd be keen to take him on just at the prices. I mean, he had a counter round at Clonmel in the.
If Galopin was coming,
then it'd be a completely different.
Would Paul Townend come? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't in love with that run. If he shows the same form as he did when he beat Clanders Obo and Alboin Photo by 14 lengths in the 2022 Punchestown Gold Cup, like he would win this.
Yeah.
But that's a massive doubt for me. I wasn't in love with that comeback. I don't particularly like Braveman's Game's prep for it. I get he'll like the course. I get it. Shiskin's doubtful to start, and anyway, I'd worry about his attitude on the whole. I think he's at the wrong price. Royal Pagaille's twice the horse at Haydock than what he is elsewhere, so I discount him. And Hewick had a bit of a shocker in the Galway Plate and will be ridden by a different jockey.
Ruling out a lot of horses
Yeah,
here.
who are you going to go for?
So I've basically, I love the Real Whacker. I love him as a horse.
Okay.
He had an excuse in the Paddy Power he got struck into, so I completely discount that. But at the prices, I'd take a massive chance on Frodon at 66 to 1.
Wow.
Like 66 to 1 with Bet365. If you look at it, I've got it down to 7 runners. You can still back him anti-post 3 places. He obviously won this race in 2020. Then if you look at his run, when he beat Galvin, Minellarindo and Delta Work in the Champion Chase at Down Royal the year after. He hasn't won since the Badger Beers in November last year. Yeah. But this is going to be a small field. And I imagine Harry Cobden, Nico de Boinville will go, OK, Bryony, off you go. You can set the pace for us. And we know how dangerous he is in these small fields. I just think he'll be worth a couple of quid each way at a course that he'll relish in a race that will cut up. And I have massive doubts around some of those towards the top of the market. It's
a well thought out shot at 66 to 1. Frodon, former winner. It was 2020, Frodon won the King George. Ella, do you feel the love for Frodon 66 to 1 each way, with the field obviously going to cut up from what we know at this stage?
I don't feel the same way, unfortunately. I think, no, fair play to take him on at 66 to 1. It's a good chance. It's got a good chance, each way chance potentially. But I heard Gentleman's Game may be supplemented tomorrow.
Wow.
So I think, he obviously beat Braveman's Game the last day. And interestingly, obviously he's owned by Rob Corr. And if Jerry doesn't go, then that could give him his King George runners. So, I think he could be a last-minute swoop in. I think Shishkin, obviously, there's obviously huge doubts about, as you say, his attitude and his willing to run. But I think he's untapped potential as a stayer. He's 4 from 4 at the track at Kempton. And I think he's got the stamina and also the pace to win a race like this. So I think if he starts and gets under a nice start. But I actually listened to Nico's interview the other day, and he said the start, obviously, for the King George is right by the stables, which doesn't do him any favours because that makes his life even more difficult. So that's obviously a huge worry. But I think he's got, the class and the untapped potential for this race.
Wow, OK. Interesting about the Gentleman's Game angle. Would that entice you at all, were he to be supplemented for the race? Would that be confirmed?
I like the horse. I tipped him to win. He won on his reappearance.
Indeed.
But, don't know.
Okay.
Not sure.
It's definitely an interesting angle.
So much to unpack.
It is so much to unpack because that's really thrown me now. Because
I had it down to 7.
Well,
it might not happen. Yeah. It might not. I just heard rumours of it yesterday. So.
Okay. Well, I know that a lot of people might laugh at this because of how his prep has gone. But I'm sitting around last night and decided that I was going to look through some of the old runs of Braveman's Game and try and understand. I saw the headline on the Racing Post and Paul Nicholls saying that Kempton is his track. It's a home game. So I had to look through some of the times of Braveman's games wins. So just looking at his run at Wetherby and at Haydock, how he's finished his races this year, both times. So when he won the Charlie Hall Chase last season, Braveman's game, and he beat Eldorado Alla, and he looked impressive that day. He won the Charlie Hall Chase in a time of 6 minutes, 1.7 seconds. When the Charlie Hall was run this year, and he was beaten by Gentleman's Game, and he looked like he was going better, going down to the last, etc. I thought Harry Cobden should have kicked on. That race was run in 6 minutes, 28.8 seconds. So that's 27 seconds slower than the race he'd won last year. The King George that he won last year in December was run in 5 minutes and 58 seconds for 3 miles at Kempton. He, I think, is an out-and-out speedy 3-mile chaser. That's why Kempton is his bag. You look at the Haydock race where Royal Pagaille outstayed him. That race was won in a time of 6 minutes, 41.9 seconds. Wow. The Gold Cup that he finished second to Galopin de Champs was only 7 seconds slower than that race, which was run over a furlong less. So it shows to me that Braveman's game has got a limit. And once that limit's reached, anybody can help themselves in the last...
6 minute limit.
It's pretty much similar to mine when it comes to exercise. 6 minutes tops. If the ground is riding decent at Kempton, I think those are the reasons why Braveman's game's got beaten this time. Don't think it's anything to do with the fact the Gold Cup left a mark on him. I don't think it's anything to do with the fact that he needed the runs. I think it's simply down to his stamina stretch. Once a race goes past a certain point, I know conditions and all that. I'm not completely dismissing things like that, but I think that's what it comes down to. So if conditions are riding decent enough, so looking at the reports for Kempton, they're saying at the moment good to soft, bit of rain forecast this week, and then it's dry up until King George Day itself. There's a bit of rain in the afternoon, but if that's the case, you're looking at another decent clip for the King George. No horse in the race has Kempton form, times, the suitability for the track as much as Braveman's game. So I'm glad that he's been friendless in the market. 11-4, currently with Bet365. I like Braveman's game for the race. This is, as Paul Nicholls said himself, his home game. So,
can I make a recommendation for you?
Please.
I'd probably take the 20-1 with Bet365 for the Ryanair Chase.
I think it's a great shout. I think that's a great shout.
Because if he wins this, I think they'll probably look at it, and I completely understand where you're coming from, and I think it's really good analysis. And they'll look at it and go, okay, fine, we're going to go the Ryanair this year. Which
is less than 6 minutes.
Exactly.
So it all falls into place. In fact, one of the entering champion chase as well. But I genuinely think he can win that race. If they go into that territory again, if it's a Galopin de Champs, he just ran away from him. There was only going to be one winner. He's a very good horse when he gets his conditions. So there we have it. 20-1.
Anyone can do it. Paul Nicholls can.
Well, it's his race, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? 14. This will be
14th. Yeah.
It might be. He's 13 so far. Okay. The Welsh Grand National is the next race that we'll preview on the show, and I'll start with Ella here because there's a horse that you're quite interested in for the Welsh National. Should we kick off with that? Let me just give you the prices for the race at the moment. Monbeg Genius, understandably 5-1 favourite. Super Survivor 7s. Nassalam 10s. I Will Do It 12s. Autonomous Cloud 14s. Chambard 14s. A few others at that price as well. Ella, go.
Yeah, so we've got Autonomous Cloud in the race. This has been his, target pretty much his whole life. No, I'm joking. But for the last kind of year, this has always been the target. Hopefully he'll make into a Grand National horse in time, but he's still relatively young and unexposed. And yeah, I think if he gets into a rhythm and jumps well, I honestly think he's got a massive each-way chance. He had a lovely prep run at... where was it?
Warwick?
No, it was
Uttoxeter. Sorry.
That's it. The name escaped me. Uttoxeter, the last day, didn't have a hard race at all. There was a few fallers in that race, so Paddy literally looked after him, didn't really touch him, and that was the perfect race for him because he's such a big horse. He's got such a huge stature. he doesn't take his racing all that well. So to go there not having a hard race beforehand, he's got some great form. He had a bit of a case of seconditis last season. He was second like 5 times or something, I think. Yeah. But chasing is his game over that trip. A big handicap like this, I think, will suit him down to a T. Okay.
Autonomous Cloud, say 14-1. Steve, Monbeg Genius looks an obvious horse for this race as well, given the fact that the form looks good from Newbury. Everything about him suggests that this is a test that should suit.
Yeah, I was amazed the handicapper left him alone, if I'm honest. I thought that was really generous that day. The one for me, and it's probably more obvious, it is Nassalam, who won the trial for it. I was really impressed with him. Won by 5.5 lengths. He's only going to have 18 days to get over that before the 27th of December. But as a result, he runs £4 well in. Under a £4 penalty. Handicappers raise him £8 up to a mark of 145. Now, he got really outpaced in the 2 mile 5 in the Grand Sefton behind Jess Gill on his reappearance. I went back and watched it. I can't believe that he finished that close at the end of it. That was on heavy ground. He is completely unexposed at this trip. I went back and looked at it. He's ran twice over 3 miles before that race, and they were both at the Cheltenham Festival and the Aintree Festival, where spring ground probably isn't his cup of tea. I was then blown away by him relishing the heavy ground last time. I imagine Keelan Quinn will once again claim £3 off him, and I thought a double figure price at 10-1. I thought that was obvious each way claims for a stayer who is unexposed at the trip and unexposed on the ground.
Yeah, I agree. He was the horse that I would back in the race. Primarily for all those reasons you mentioned. I remember when he was second to Adagio in the finale years ago. Now it seems, didn't think that this would be his race, but as his career has progressed, I think the ground and the distance are the two things that have certainly perked up anyone's interest in Nassalam. So yeah, won the trial earlier in the month of December. Obviously, he's got that shorter gap that you'd like to probably see a little bit longer, but he is £4 well in. So swings and roundabouts. Nassalam for Steve in the Welsh National. The Savills Chase in Ireland, Ella, it looks as if it could be another clash between Faster Slow, Galopin de Champ. I'm just going to have a look at how the market is shaping up. Galopin de Champ 7-4, Faster Slow 5-2, Jerry Colomb 9-2, Envoy Allen 13-2. Stage Star might go for that. Paul Nicholls has mooted that 7-1. What are your thoughts on the race?
I really like Fast or Slow. Obviously, the form in the Ultima has just stacked up time and time again. I think that race was one of the best at the festival last season, I'm going to say. Love great sponsors of the race, I think. No, I'm joking. And obviously, yeah, won Punchestown Gold Cup, then went and won at Punchestown a few weeks ago. I think he's the one to beat. But obviously, Galopin de Champ, you have to fear. I do think that Fast or Slow is the improving horse. I think obviously Galopin de Champ, you can't underrate him. But it's Fast or Slow for me. But again, what a fantastic race we've got on our hands. It's great to see all these clashes we get so early on in the season. We don't particularly get to see over in England. So yeah, another fascinating race. It is
it's a great time of the year to enjoy these horses. Fast or Slow is 5-2. I've got to say I'm against Ella here. I like Fast or Slow a lot. I'd like to see him run in the King George. That was the race that I thought of it. But I'm against him, Steve, because of his record at Leopardstown.
And it's the Leopardstown record while I'm with Galopin de Champ. He's 3 from 3 over fences at the venue. If you look back at his form, he won by 22 lengths at this meeting as a novice chaser, won the Grade 1 novice chase at the Dublin Racing Festival here last season, and then won the Irish Gold Cup, beating Statler by 8 lengths. Never looking in a moment's worry last year. I know Fast or Slow's beaten on his previous 2 starts, but this return to go left-handed, I think will really suit Galopin de Champ. I think 7-4, I think he'll go off a lot shorter than that. I went back and watched the race last year, and I mean, it's just different levels of Grade 1s, isn't it? You had Conflated beating Kenboy and Fury Road, and then this year you've got Galopin de Champ, Fast or Slow. You could have Jerry Colomb, Gentleman's Game, Envoy Allen, Conflated, maybe even a Plutard. What a race this is. I think Galopin de Champ is definitely the one to beat back at Leopardstown.
Did you copy my notes? Because Galopin de Champ, 3 from 3 over fences at Leopardstown, total victory margin of 39 lengths.
I'd love to say that I could read your writing, let alone copy your notes.
To be fair, I can't spell and I can't write, so I don't even know what I've written. But I do know that I wrote down Fast or Slow, 3 runs at Leopardstown, well beaten in all 3. So he is a coming force, yes, and were this race run at Punchestown, I'd have no doubts that he'd be the selection. But I'm worried about Leopardstown for fast or slow. So I'm with Galopin de Champ as well. Also in Ireland, there's the potential for who knows who's going to turn up. But even if just a handful of them turn up for the Neville Hotel's Novice Chase, it could be one of the races of the season. There's Classical Dream, Corbett's Cross, Favre de Chandu, Flooring Porter, Fact to File, American Mike, Gaelic Warrior. They're all in there. Obviously, they're few with multiple entries, as you can imagine, at this time of the year. But what do you make of that?
It's probably not a race to get involved in anti-post wise, because they've obviously got the 2.5 mile at Limerick also as an option. I can't have Corbett's Cross as a 5-2 shot in this. If you have both Monty Star and Nick Rocket at 20-1, obviously based on that beginner's chase last time. 3-car Brag's also in there at 14-1. Maybe Ella will know where he's obviously intending to go. But I just thought, if you've got Corbett's Cross there at 5-2, obviously bear in mind that he had the benefit of a chasing debut before that run where he beat those. And he'd have been the one better suited by the 2 mile 5 than this step up to 3 miles and half a furlong here. The one I'm going for this is Classical Dream. I was absolutely blown away by his chasing debut at Thurles. He was foot perfect. I know he was entitled to win like that as a 1-4 shot, but we know that he has his previous back class due to all of his hurdles form, and I just loved the way that he jumped. I saw a lot of people saying, yeah, but he's regressed over hurdles and he's not up to what he used to. Just go back and look at the Hatton's Grace from last year. He finished a neck behind Tiupu with Honeysuckle back in third. Like that sets the standard on hurdles runs here. He's taken to fences really well. There was a reason why he's chasing at 9. He just had a few niggly issues, and I was blown away by that. I think, 5-2 for this and 12-1 for the Brown Advisory, both available with Bet365. I think they're brilliant bets.
Okay, a big fan of Classical Dream. Ella, I know it's very hard to make an adamant decision now because of the uncertainty of exactly who's going to line up, but what are your thoughts on the race?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think Classical Dream was very impressive. I do think Corbett's Cross, I quite fancy him. I think obviously bowled out in the Albert Bartlett and lovely beginner's chase run behind 3-car Brag and Nick's Rocket, which obviously was, I think that was a real big talking horse and quite disappointing, I think, run from that horse. And considering how much he was talked up before the race. But I like Corbett's Cross, but as you say, it's difficult to know at this stage who will run and who will run where. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting race, and Corbett's Cross, I think I like.
Yeah, I like Corbett's Cross, but just looking at the way the season's gone so far, I think Classical Dream, you'd have to say, was so impressive. You'd be loath to oppose him. There's so many other good races that we can talk about over this spell. So I'll let Steve start off on this particular angle and maybe come up with one or two others that you're looking forward to seeing, whether it's coming up this weekend, whether it's over the Christmas spell. Off you go.
Yeah, I'll start off with what's coming up this week. There's a really nice 2.5 mile novice hurdle at Newbury on Wednesday. Obviously, depending on when you watch this, you've got both East India Express for Nicky Henderson and Gidley Park for Harry Fry. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Fireflyer over hurdles. He finished second in a listed bumper at Cheltenham behind Brecon Castle last time and goes hurdling. I really loved that race. I think the other two are both unbeaten in 2 starts, so they're probably going to dominate the market. And I thought Fireflyer on Wednesday would probably be a big price in receipt of £6 from both of them. Looking at the 155 Ascot on Friday, Hon Publique was the horse that benefited from JPR1 unseating Brendan Powell at the last at Cheltenham in that Grade 2 Arkle trial. He finished 2 lengths ahead of Petit Tonnerre that day, and they've obviously both ran well in the Henry VIII Novice Chase. He runs at Ascot on Friday. He has scope off a mark of 139. The runner-up from his chasing debut as well, Geromino, won at Doncaster on Saturday. So the form's working out well as well. I actually said on the show after that race that he probably wasn't the horse to take out of the race, but actually the form is stacking up a lot better than I expected it to. So 155 Ascot on Friday for him. The listed bumper at Ascot on Friday is also an absolute cracker. You've got Brecon Castle, Captain Bellamy and Celtic Dino all entered in that. So that's a race to watch in there as well. In the opening novice handicap hurdle at Ascot on Saturday, wrapped up in May, is entered in that. Now, he owes punters a few quid. He's been beaten at 8-13 on his last 3 starts, but the form actually looks quite good. He was beaten by Mount Fuji Park, who I know Paul Ferguson was blown away by, and is one of his jumpers to follow in a maiden hurdle at Foss Lass. The pair pulled 15 lengths clear of the third that day. He then finished second behind Deafin in Silence at Exeter, which again on the face of it you'd be disappointed with, but he went on to win that Grade 2 novice hurdle at Sandown, beating Insurrection. That rival's rated 135. Wrapped Up in May is off a handicap debut of 118.
Wow.
He is chucked in off that mark. So if he runs in that novice handicap hurdle at Ascot on Saturday, I would be on him. No betting, but Hermes Allen will now be rerouted to the Courtauld Novices Chase. That will be a belting race against Ile Francais in that. I wouldn't have a strong opinion on who I'd fancy in that, and obviously it'd be great to see Constitution Hill in the Christmas hurdle at Kempton. And then I'm interested to see if you still fancy Flash Collonge. Obviously you liked him. He's
I did, yeah. I was going to mention him but I like him still, but not as much as I liked him in the race that he was going to line up in at Doncaster. I thought it was a weaker race. This is a little bit tougher, but he still has that scope, and I'm hoping that it was just a simple case of the fact that Paul Nicholls is looking for a bit more prize money down at Ascot in the Silver Cup. Yeah. But I did tip him last week, and he didn't run at Doncaster, but he's entered to run in the Silver Cup. All the things I say stand. He's rated in the mid-140s over hurdles. He's running off a mark in the 130s over fences. He sprawled on landing in the Scottish National when I thought he was still in with a chance, and his form leading up to that had been good and progressive, and I think he's still at a point where he can he can cause some damage in the handicap where he is at the moment. But slightly tougher race. The confidence levels have dropped a couple of notches from the Doncaster race to the one coming up at Ascot. What about you, Ella? What else are you looking forward to over the weekend and Christmas?
I see that Giovinco is also being aimed at the Courtauld Star. He was second behind Stay Away Fair at Sandown a couple of weeks ago. So I really like him. I think it's got another cracking race. And I also heard that Nappers Hill is fortunately injured and won't be running for the rest of the season, which is obviously a real shame for the team after he won the Rising Star at Wincanton. But obviously the Silver Cup, great race again. Blackjack Magic, I think, is currently favourite. He won the Badger Beer 300-3-5, came second in that race, and then obviously second to Broadway Boy, so that form has kind of worked out really well. I like Angel's Breath. He's got some great form at Ascot. He's a big price. I think he was 11-1 the last time, but he is carrying 11 stone 11, so that's the only slight doubt in my mind. And then obviously you've got the Faheen Novice Chase over in Ireland. Yep. I think that's where hopefully 3-card Bragg will go. Obviously, if Gaelic Warrior turns up, we'll be fearing him. But another deep race, and yeah, it's just so much great racing to look forward to over Christmas. It's hard to know where to pinpoint to start, really.
That's a very good point. There's so much good racing. I'm just going to tread carefully with so many horses that I like, that I want to follow. Anything else, or is that 3-card Bragg was the last mention for the moment?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got Giovinco, Angel's Breath, and 3-card Bragg for you. Fireflyer, On Public, Wrapped Up in May, the principal ones for you, and I've circled and starred Wrapped Up in May. Yeah,
I've got a couple more over in Christmas in Ireland, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
Irish Point hopefully will step up to 3 miles in the Christmas hurdle over there. He won the Grade 1 Mersey Novices hurdle at Aintree over 2.5 miles, beating Katira, Hermes Allen, Let's Be Clear About It, You Wear It Well, Springwell Bay and Crambo.
It's worked out all right.
That has worked out all right. He dropped back in trip to beat Magical Zoe over 2 mile 1 last time, but he looks like a stayer. He's in a race that has Home by the Lee and Sir Gerhard, who I think both have slight question marks. I'd be confident that he's better than both of those. I think he's around 9-4 at the time of recording.
He is 9-4. Home by the Lee 5-2. Sir Gerhard 4s.
Yeah. So I'd definitely be with him in that. I said on the show that I loved the hurdling debut of Daddy Longlegs. Yeah. When he ran, he's slowly shortened in the markets for the future champions novice hurdle now. Obviously, Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott have loads that they can run in that. They've shared this race between them for the last 8 years. The score's 6-2 to Willie currently. I'd prefer him over either Down Memory Lane or Firefox for Gordon. So yeah, I'm hoping Daddy Longlegs runs there. I'd really fancy him for that. I was blown away by that hurdling performance. And then finally, the betting in the Matheson hurdle suggests that Impere Pass won't be taking on State Man in the race. Okay. However, there was an interesting interview with Anthony Bromley saying that he's come out of his last race well and the plan is to run at Christmas. Well, if they're going to do that, it's going to be in this race. And currently, they have State Man at 1-3 and Impere Pass at 7-2, and that price discrepancy is far too big. Now, as soon as you get confirmation of it, they're not going to be 1 to 3 and 7 to 2. But I wouldn't have Impera Pass that far behind State Man.
Interesting. All right. Impera Pass, one to keep an eye on what happens and where he turns up. Irish Point and Daddy Longlegs added to Steve's list of horses to follow over the weekend and into the Christmas spell. I'll mention 2 others. Obviously, I've mentioned Flash Collonge already. I'll add to my horses that I'm looking out for. Tommy Whittle at Haydock on Saturday, the horse that won it a couple of years ago on card. He won it off a mark of 128. He's now a pound lower. I think he might have gone close in 2020 when he was actually travelling okay before coming a cropper. He had a wind-up, then won at Warwick in November, and he returns to a race where he clearly goes well at Haydock. He's a pretty decent jumper, touch wood, and I thought, given his position in the market and where he is in the handicap, I thought he was an interesting selection. So Alcard in the Tommy Whittle, Flash Collonge in the Silver Cup. There's a very good handicap hurdle at Ascot on Saturday, potentially. The horses that finished 1, 2, 3, 5 in the race at Cheltenham, Iberico Lord, Look Away, Lucia, Nemean Line, they're all lining up again. There are 1 or 2 other players. I'm going to take a chance with Look Away again. I really like him. I think he was a bit of obviously a sitting duck for Iberico Lord, but obviously I think it's £3 better off with Iberico Lord. I also like the fact that he races from the front. I think that will suit him at Ascot more than he will at Cheltenham. So I'll take a chance and Look Away. I think he was a relatively decent price when I last checked the market for that. He is 8 to 1. I thought each way he was a solid selection. So there's a couple more to add to the pot. I think if we add just a couple more, then we have about 40 horses that we've tipped away. And obviously Facile Vega running on Boxing Day as well. He's just one to look out for and enjoy. Very, very excited by what he's going to do over fences. Okay, so that's a look at what's coming up. We still, though, have our best bets of the weekend or the Christmas period still to come on the show. But before we get into our best bets, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It's available every weekend with prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. T's and C's apply. So into the closing stages of this episode of Racing Weekly, and it's time for our best bets coming up, whether it's this weekend or indeed over Christmas. I'm going with Christmas. But Ella, as our guest, you get to go first.
Well, thank you. My best bet of the Christmas period, I'm going to go with Autonomous Cloud. I've got to stick with my guns. He's had the perfect prep race at Uttoxeter a few weeks ago now, and yeah, his prep into this race couldn't have gone better. He's a big price at 14 to 1. I think I'd definitely take him at that. He's well in the handicap. He's only carrying 10 stone 9. You know, others carrying in like almost 12 stone, so he's well in the handicap. I think the only question mark, if you look at his form, is, you know, he's never gone over that trip before, but we always think that he's an out-and-out stayer. We're hoping he's a Grand National horse of the future. And yeah, I've got to stick with my guns with Autonomous Cloud.
And we certainly appreciate that. So Autonomous Cloud, 14 to 1 in the Welsh National for Ella. Steve.
So I looked at the Betfair Exchange Trophy on Saturday. Nicky Henderson and Gary Moore kind of dominate the market, the likes of Iberico, Lord, Impostoir, Lucia. Gary Moore obviously has Hansard and Spirit Danu. The latter would run £6 well in the handicap if he was to run. Then you've got our old friend, Only a Matter of Time. In there, he would be £4 out the handicap, so bear in mind that, and will probably run out again. But my best bet in the race at a massive price is So Royale at 33 to 1. Now, the handicapper has given him a right chance. He's dropped into a mark of 145. Ben Bromley is booked to take off a further £5 as well. If you go back through his form, he was still rated 156 when beating Sebastopol 9.5 lengths in a listed race just over a year ago. I know he's been slightly disappointed, but down in the handicap, I think of a mark of 145 will really suit him. It's his first handicap run since winning the 2020 Welsh Champion Hurdle that he won by 2 3/4 lengths of a mark of 150. So I don't think 2.5 miles that he ran at last time would have suited him. And I think that was just a bit of a game to get him drop £5 in the handicap. And yeah, 33 to 1 on Saturday, I think, is a massive price.
Sold. I really like the way you've thought that out. I'm deserting. No, I'm not going to desert. Look away. But that's an interesting shout. Yeah, come to think of it, that run over the wrong trip was ideal for Connections. It's just the age question for So Royal that was for me. But I like the way you've played it. My best bet of the Christmas period is going to be Braveman's Game. I've mentioned him in the show before. I mentioned him in previous shows as well because I'm not too concerned with horses having two tough runs before a big target. In the old days, horses would run lots of times before big races. And we're talking about a trainer who is adept at winning the King George more than any other in the race's history. Paul Nicholls knows exactly what's required. The fact that he's run Braveman's Game a couple of times, I think is a positive, if anything. Get him hard, ready to go in the King George. The other point about it, Paul Nicholls has mentioned it, lots of people have mentioned it, Kempton is his track. I've spoken about the fact that when you look at his times of his wins, his best performances, hovering around the 6-minute mark is his peak. And as long as the ground is not completely a bog at Christmas time and it's going to be run in 6.5 minutes, as long as it's a normal standard run King George time, I think Kempton is the track that brings out the best in Braveman's Game. You know, he thumped Royal Pagaille in the race last year. Ignore the run when talking about his chances in the King George. Ignore the run in the Betfair Chase. And I also think the performance in beating, where he had L'Empresse beaten in the race last year, given where that horse was at the time and he'd won the rehearsal chase, etc. I thought it was a massive performance, and then he followed that up with that run in the Gold Cup. So I think Braveman's Game, I think 11-4 at the moment, looking at the other horses who are due to line up, I think it's a really good price still for a horse that I think is the one to beat at Kempton. So that's a look at our best bets. Just to reiterate, Ella's gone for Autonomous Cloud in the Welsh National. I really like your thinking on So Royal, 33-1 for the Betfair Exchange Trophy Ascot on Saturday, and Braveman's Game in the King George. I've gone for the big race. Thank you very much, Ella. I hope you've enjoyed being on Racing Weekly.
Oh, it's been great. Thanks so much for having me.
What's Christmas got in store for you?
Well, I'm working at King George Day on Boxing Day, so
is that Race Day TV?
Race Day TV,
yeah.
But I'm so looking forward to that. One of my favourite days of the year. But a nice, quiet Christmas day before heading to Kempton.
Lovely. And Steve?
Yeah, nice and quiet. Obviously, I've got 7 meetings, I think, in the UK to tip on for Boxing Day. So yeah, I'll be scrolling away on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, similar. I'll be poring over, well, not quite as bad as that, but I'll be poring over the form on Christmas Day when I can find a few minutes. That is it for this edition of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thank you very much to Steve Ryder and to Ella McNeill for joining me on the show this week. As always, if you've liked what you heard or watched in this or any of our previous episodes, then please leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. We're going to be back at the end of January. Brian Cooper, Gold Cup winning jockey, will join us to look ahead to the Dublin Racing Festival. It seems like it's a long way, but blink and you know it'll be right on our doorstep. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined us so far in this series of Racing Weekly. From Steve, Ella, myself and the Racing Weekly team, have a very Merry Christmas and we'll see you in the new year.